Yeah. Folks, we got a red dot. Welcome back to 330 to Go. I'm your host, Hank Forrester, coming to you live from inside the corner penthouse above Acme #1. And I'm sitting here with our friend and Akron's own, Rockne, and we are going to have a chance to discuss right now the restaurant situation in the 330. So, Mr. B, why don't you go ahead and I always ask the first question I always ask is, what is your Akron story?
Well, I started off with the robbery business. No, I grew up in Akron, Ohio. Went to all the Catholic schools, and went to work for the railroad. Went to work for the city. Ended up winning a bar in a poker game, believe it or not.
Okay.
And that was the start of Rockne's. And I didn't know whether I won or lost for about 3 years.
So wait a second, I don't know the history.
Well, that's the history.
You won the bar.
I won the bar in a card game.
In a card game.
Yeah.
Okay.
And didn't know whether I won or lost for years.
Okay.
So anyway, that's how that works.
So how long were you in the restaurant industry?
I was in it for about 30 years. I opened up St. Patrick's Day in 1981, and I ran it to about 2010. That's how that worked out.
Okay, let me turn down the notifications real quick. Hold on 1 second, folks. It'll drive us crazy. And
What's the notification?
the notifications are, my phone will beep and ding and do all that every time I'm getting any kind of a message or something. All right, we're good. And we're back.
And we're back.
And we're back. All right. Okay, so tell me about that.
Well, a little thing that we're starting up is called Dining Adventures, and before the
Pandemic.
pandemic hit, we were kind of on it, and we were out talking to the people in Portage Lakes that own, what's it called? It's the house out there in the lakes. I'm trying to think of what it was, but I think that'll be our first spot that we do it in out there. And it was the old Cyberlings Investors House.
Okay.
And it'll come to me as we're talking.
The Tudor House?
The Tudor House. Thank you, Scott.
I've DJ'd there.
Yeah, you have?
Yeah.
Okay, okay. So anyway, it's something like, you invite 18, 20 people to come out and have dinner, drink a glass of wine. And,
Okay.
it's kind of use different restaurants to communicate the event and stuff like that.
Okay.
And what got me thinking about this, I was out in Barkerton one day, and I was at an old bakery out there called Hess Bakery. And I walked in the back and I saw these amazing old ovens that he had. And I asked him, I said, would you be interested in dinner? And I never did answer him, but he had a table that was like 30 feet long. They kind of built the building around it, which was kind of cool.
Okay. So when this happened, what was it? I think we made the joke. It was for the last normal day we had was Friday the 13th. So it was like March 13th. So I believe he closed everything down and shut the schools on the 15th.
Right.
Was the date, right? When you heard restaurants, what was the first thing that went through your mind?
I thought, geez, what a nice break to have.
Did you really?
Yeah, it's always nice to have a break. Well, you have to look at the good of whatever comes around, Scott. And, is there good in this thing? Well, there has to be something. I mean, it just all can't be negative. Now, I'm sure you've heard that some restaurants will close, and I'm sure some of them will. But this is probably giving them a good time to think about their customer base.
Okay.
Maybe do a little work on their restaurants.
I do know several that did have. Yeah.
And as I was talking to my son on the way over here, he was telling me that he says, "Hey, Dad, you call these places up to get food, and you go online, and it's basically a cluster,
Right.
And so I think they could do a little bit of work on that. I think the online business should be booming for these people. I've heard some stories of people doing some pretty remarkable business during this time. I know the pizza shops are booming.
Right.
And
I think anybody that was already set up for delivery and for that kind of pickup is doing fine. I think the ones that are struggling the most are your sit-down places.
oh, absolutely. And the smaller ones are probably hurting the worst.
Yeah.
You know, and then how about the people that were going to open up restaurants? I know there's a lady that used to work with me, and she's opening up the old Rockne's in Cuyahoga Falls, and this hit right as they were getting ready to open up. I haven't talked to them personally yet, but I'm sure that's a blow.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, you know, you go get money from your investors or wherever, your family, and you're putting this together.
And places that had just opened up right before.
Yeah, it's a blow. And you know, I got to tell you, I still love to cook, and I cook all the time. And I shop like a restaurateur still. And I was at a place that we shop for restaurants, the Restaurant Depot, if I can say that. And
sure.
Yesterday, I was watching them turn people down for food. So, you know, kind of what's going to happen here is when this thing, you know, right now the food chain is just backed up. I mean, like, it's just, there's a guy here owned a rib joint somewhere, and he had a couple of cases of ribs, and they didn't sell it to him. So I talked to the manager over there that run the place, and he was telling me that they've gone down from 8,000 pounds of pork to 1,000 pounds. So, you know, everybody has to get a little bit in order to survive. So let's look at this, the whole thing like this. This thing has slowed everything down from the growers to the producers, you know, cows, chickens, everything is slowed down. If the restaurants came back and opened up like this, there wouldn't be enough food for them right now. I know for a fact that it wouldn't be. So I think slower is going to be better coming back on. I mean, we've heard about the 6 feet, 25 people in a restaurant, you know, is what they're talking about.
Well, you know,
25%.
We talked before we went live. Folks, when you look at a typical restaurant check-in process right now, okay? Any sit-down restaurant, you name it, you go in, you sign up your name, you get your little pager, and then you are seated at a booth, and at the booth you've got a little corral that's got your ketchup and your mustard and your salt shakers and your pepper shakers and straws and napkins and basically everything about the restaurant business right now. You touch stuff. Everything. You're on top of people and you touch stuff. Okay? So as we go further into this now and we make some changes, what are restaurants going to have to do in order to deal with all that kind of thing? Are they going to be disposable menus, or what's the paper menus for everybody? What's going to happen?
Well, let's look at it this way. Who knows what's going to happen? But just about everything that you described is going to be like that. I mean, you're going to come in and wear a pair of gloves when you go in to eat dinner now.
Right. And
are you going to wear a mask?
Can't wear a mask and eat.
You know, I was just hearing back during the Spanish flu that they had that people were wearing masks, and they still like to smoke and drink, so they have little holes cut.
Right. Which defeats the purpose of the mask.
Yeah, can you imagine all it's a built-in napkin, right?
Right.
You know, so
what's going to happen? I mean, what kind of changes can a restaurant do now to start proactively getting ready for this?
Well, I wish I could answer that question other than just what I told you. I think to keep your customer base alive somewhat. I mean, really, when you think about it, when this first hit, I'm sure nobody thought about anything to go. I mean, that's the last thing that was on our mind, but then it goes, hey, man, we got to sell something, got to keep some of these people working. I mean, look at look what's happening here. You know, it's just, everything's kind of backed up. How would you like to be a bartender? You know, in Akron, Ohio, or a waitress? And, you know, those people were always the best tippers, and, you know, when they went out on the town, which they spent a lot of money on in the town, you know, that's all gone now.
Yeah.
So if I had to think ahead, what would I do? I think I would just try to be the best that I could be. You know, I mean, that's maybe come back start off with a limited menu, because, you know, as it stands right now, if everything opened up, do you think everybody would run out today? I don't think they would come out today at all. I mean, I think this thing has a course to run. My thought, and I'm kind of agreeing with what you're talking about in the news, you know, let's see what happens here. But these people have to make money. I mean, I've heard about these people trying to give gift certificates, selling their gift certificates to help these guys out. But hey, what if you're going to buy a gift certificate and Fred's out of business,
Right.
or Bob's out of business, or Larry's out of business, you know,
Right.
that type of thing. So the best thing I would think right now is pray. Praying's good.
Okay.
You know, really, I mean, the grocery stores all seem to be doing good, and the people that were set up in the business to go, you know, some of the Chinese places. I mean, I really have talked to people in the pizza business, and they're booming. They have their best. They're doing their best business right now.
Right.
Okay, so we're right back to that little guy, and you know, in the chains. I mean, think about owning a chain. I mean, how's that? I guess McDonald's is okay, and Burger King.
Well, now they're, like you said, they're starting to run out of beef.
Yeah.
Wendy's.
Well, I think right now well, I've heard this, yes, but I think right now we're okay.
It's just short, you know, but, and now, I haven't walked to the back of Acme yet, but I've gotten reports that Costco, Sam's Club, Giant Eagle have all limited their meat purchase
yes,
now.
yeah, and you know, they're buy 2 of these limited and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But, you know, the restaurant guys, I mean, Scott, I wouldn't be sitting there if you knew the answer, if anybody knew the answer. And let's face it, I mean, the $1,200 stimulus check that they sent out, I mean, what's that? That's like a Band-Aid on a bad cut.
Yeah.
Right? But it was something.
Yep.
And, you know, my thought is, you know, we live in this great place in America, just print some more money.
Yep.
You know, run off another couple billion for these guys. I mean, it'll come back. Everything will come back. But I think people are afraid. I mean, you've never seen this. I've never seen this. And, you know, according to, like, me talking to my mother, and they were telling me about the Depression, how wild that was. And, you know, this is like an open wound out of the Depression.
Yeah.
It's pretty wild.
Yep.
And we have a lot of stopgaps, I think, put in here. And you know, I've got to tell you, a lot of these people still haven't got their unemployment.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, even got through to to talk on the phone.
I tried. I did the emergency disaster loan or whatever.
For your
with the DJ thing, my biggest issue is as these brides and weddings continue to push, which they are. May is empty now. June's almost empty. You know, the further we go into that, we're losing all that revenue. And then on top of that, some brides are moving to dates and canceling or canceling, and I've got to do refunds. So that's where I would. So on top of not making money,
right, you're paying it
now I'm paying back the deposits, right? Depending on what our contract's worded, but I can't be the guy that doesn't give somebody back their money during a pandemic. I mean, come on. So it's like, the point is that's what I would use that loan for.
Now, I'm going to ask you a question.
Yeah.
Are the weddings stopped?
100%. There's nothing happening.
I mean, you can't go to a church.
I had one set for May 16th, and it was an outdoor wedding at Wingfoot Lake, the park. So we thought, okay, well, it's outdoor, maybe this one will still happen. Park called them up and said, yeah, you're not doing that. So May's empty now, and June, and you know, we are literally tied to the restaurant and catering industry as a DJ industry. All of our events, all these big events, you look at Lock 3, everything's been canceled for Akron all summer. So we're looking at the same thing that restaurants are in regards to, you know, where's our revenue stream going to come from? And especially because we're tied in with caterers, we're tied in with banquet halls, we're tied in with all these large facilities that do, you know, my average size wedding is between 200 to 250 people.
Really?
So, yeah, and that's why the restaurant thing is hand in hand with us.
Well, maybe you should do that GoFundMe thing. Send Scott money.
No, see, I told my wife and daughter are still working, so we have some money coming in, right? But at the same time, you know, and 330, we've got some patrons and some sponsors, so we don't really necessarily need to GoFundMe because I'd rather that go to somebody that's really, really dire, right? But at the same time, I always like to say, and I've been saying for a couple weeks now, we're all in the same storm, but we're all in different boats. Some
This
are,
is good. I
some
like
are
kind of
big,
like a Noah's
some
Ark.
are in big boats, some are in little boats, and some are in boats that have already shipwrecked, right?
Right.
So it's like, how do we navigate that together is the question.
Right.
So-
Well, you know, I gotta tell you, you know, people have to eat. And they're going to. I think people have learned right now, I can eat at home too.
Yep.
You know, a lot of this has become very complacent to these people. I mean, they kind of, I know a lot of the older people are getting really edgy, you know, listening to the news and older people. It's like, nobody comes to see me and who's going
Right.
to. I know when my brothers come and visit my mother, they talk to her from the street.
Right.
You know.
So that my mom and dad pull out, they park on the street, and the kids run out.
And let's face it, Scott, there's people that take this a lot more serious than other people do.
Yep.
I mean, I keep my distance. I wear my mask. I do.
Yep.
And but you know, the world goes on. I mean, it really is. And you know, as far as you interviewing me about what's going to happen in the restaurant business, the only thing I would tell you is that if I was sitting there with the debt on a restaurant and with all those employees, you know, that's the big hit here is your employees. I mean, you know, back in the day, you know, any of these restaurants had 50, 60 people working in there. You know, what do you got now? You might have a couple, cooks in the back cooking, a couple of chefs cooking here, so somebody to answer the telephones and that stuff. And I'm sure they're doing all this stuff online orders, you know, that type of thing.
Yep.
And you know, make your food better as best you can. Get your restaurants in shape for when this comes back up. You know, we just talked a little bit about nobody's advertising. There are still people that are advertising about it. And what's to say you can't stand out in the street in front of your restaurant and wave at people and you know, do something as crazy as that sound. But some of the signs that I've seen out in front of these restaurants, you know, to go, I mean, they clean that up.
What's your take on the restaurant industry as a whole raising prices when they come back?
Well,
Because I read an article
that they're going to do
that they're going to have to do that.
You know, another friend of mine, he told me yesterday, he says, you know, we were kind of talking in the restaurant business, he says, you know, somebody's going to come up with a discount, you know, and, you don't want to necessarily call it a discount, but, you know, what do you do to, I mean, if it comes back and you were paying $5 for a hamburger, now you're going to pay 10, which $10 isn't out of the realm. There's plenty of people that sell $10 and $15 hamburgers, and so you told me those hamburgers are going to be now $20, $25, that's a lot of money to spend for a hamburger.
Yeah.
And I think people might look at going out as a little bit different anymore.
Okay.
You know, I really do. You know, where we all took this for granted for forever.
Yep.
And maybe now when we go out to dinner, we'll think a little bit more about how nice we really have it.
Okay.
You know.
Okay.
I mean, that's my thought. And I wish I would be the great white hope and tell you how it's all going to be, but you know, I think to pray to God, it's as long as
Okay.
I'm not going to get beat up doing that.
All right. Well, that's a good landing spot. Listen, I really appreciate you and your thoughts.
Well, thanks, Scott.
Thanks for being
And
on
give
the
me a
little
kick
show.
there,
Got a little foot bump there.
Yeah, thanks for meeting me up there, and I hope I answered all your questions. And
We're going to wrap up, folks, but feel free to share that around town. Just a shout out to all the people that are in the restaurant industry. We really appreciate all of you and all your efforts. And we're looking forward to getting through this. And we're looking forward to being back out there and eating at your places.
and
All right?
good luck, all of you.
All right. Hey, I'll see you guys tomorrow. I'm going to do my Corona haircut, I think. Middle of the day. That'll be fun. Until then, I don't know where I'm going, but there ain't no sense of being late. Everybody, say goodnight, Shirley.